Getting the smile and confidence you've been dreaming about, all from the comfort of your home, isn't a total mystery with Bite clear aligners. Just don't be surprised if all your friends start asking, "What's your secret?" Begin by ordering your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95. Bite clear aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces, plus they offer flexible financing, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Little Cuts, our weekly mini-sode where we dig into the things that we've been watching recently. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth. This week we are talking about The Two Usuals. We're going to mark the end of an era with The Two Usuals this week.
End.
A 90s building under siege film where Billy Zane has never been sexier. Oh, I'm very excited.
Truth.
And in a shocking turn of events, Mary Beth will be talking about a found footage movie.
Gasp.
Okay, but Terry, I want to hear about this Billy Zane sexy movie.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I love music. I love music so much.
Okay.
I think above everything else, music is like my first love. Like I love it more than movies. And I love when
really?
It's true. And
Wow.
I love when a music can like just like instantly teleport me someplace and bring a smile to my face. So when I put this movie in and it starts and I hear dun 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 dun, and it's the Tales from the Crypt theme by Danny Elfman, and it just like brings me so much joy. And this movie brought me so much joy. It is Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight from 1995.
Oh my God.
By Ernest R. Dickerson, who also directed Bones from 2001, I think it is, that I plan to watch next because I just was so enamored with his direction in this film. He's done a lot of TV work.
Okay.
He's directed like Bosch. He's directed like 11 episodes of The Walking Dead.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Some Treme, some Dexter, The Wire. I think he was he got like a lot of attention for his directorial stuff on The Wire.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, so this movie is I was not expecting a building under siege movie, but that is what this is. It opens up with this car chase set to Filter, Hey Man, Nice Shot. Do you remember that song from the 90s? No. Hey Man, Nice Shot. I butchered that. I'm going to delete that part from the editing. It's such a good song. It's such a good song, and it reminded me how much I miss 90s alternative music. I miss it. I miss it in movies.
Wait, so Jada Pinkett Smith is in this movie too, right?
She is. She is the final girl in this movie.
She's the final girl, right? Okay. Yeah.
About this demon named the Collector, who's played by Billy Zane. Billy Zane in this movie. Let me tell you, he's just
insane,
oozing sex appeal. And And camp. Sex appeal and camp. Who can pull that,
Oh my
that
God.
shit off? And
Wow.
he is chasing after this guy named Breaker, who's played by William Sadler.
Okay.
And he is trying to get this artifact that contains... at one point, it contained the blood of Christ. And then every, I don't know, generation or so, someone is in charge of this relic and ends up putting their own blood into it and refilling it. And so it's continued throughout generation, and he has this. The collector's chasing after him. He gets to this building and ends up pouring the blood on all of the passageways to enter the building to seal it off because Billy Zane wants it. And Billy Zane's going to summon a bunch of goopy practical effects demons that pull themselves out of the ground in such fantastic practical effectery. It's just, it's so good. And then they all attack the building, and it's basically them trying to stay alive till the next day.
Whoa. I had no idea that's what that movie was.
Me neither.
Wow. Okay. Well, I knew I had to see it, but this makes me have to see it even more because that sounds absolutely radical.
It is so good. And the effects, like, we know, y'all know, I love good practical effects. I love practical effects more than anything else. And even when a practical effect might not live up to, like, you can see the seams maybe 20 or 30 years later, it never fails to give me a sense of wonder and whimsy. And the effects in this movie are just absolutely fantastic, and it's really funny.
Campy 90s.
Yes, camp, so much camp, but also so much gore and so much goopery. I love it.
Goopery. I like the goopery.
And a good cast.
Yeah, it has an amazing cast. And I first heard of it from the horror noir documentary, and it's been on my list for a long time. I have no excuse why I haven't seen it yet, because I know I'm going to love it. It's Jada Pinkett Smith as the final girl, and Billy Zane as the villain.
And Jada Pinkett Smith giving me like butch girl realness. Like, she's just
her. Oh my God! I was
her.
going to say, like, her entire vibe is very good.
Love her. Billy Zane is giving me some like coded queer realness, and I love it. I love this movie so much.
Oh my gosh.
I am so upset that I have waited this long to see it.
Well, I'm now upset I've waited this long to see it too, but I'm going to watch. Now I'm looking at Billy Zane's filmography, and he hasn't been in a lot of good stuff in a while, huh?
No. No, he is not.
That's okay.
But I'll tell you what. That man.
It's true. He's very attractive.
But I want to also hear about your found footage film.
So I watched this found footage movie. It's called In Memoriam from 2005. And it is one of the very few found footage movies directed by a woman that I can find. It's directed by a woman named Amanda Gusak, who has only directed 2 movies, this one and another called The Betrayed in 2008. And she hasn't made anything since, which is a shame because In Memoriam is really good. So In Memoriam is found footage about a man who has been diagnosed with terminal bone cancer, and he and his girlfriend are going to this house where they can record basically a documentary of his final days. They are setting up surveillance cameras and microphones in this house to record, and they're not doing it in their apartment because they don't want all of their friends coming over constantly and like being annoying and grieving. And it's a really beautiful film about grief and confronting your mortality, but on top of that, there's a ghost in this house. So the techniques it's using are things we see 2 years later in Paranormal Activity, but aren't really talked about before Paranormal Activity. Like, this is all surveillance like cameras put around the house. There's only a couple instances of when they pick up one of the cameras, but it's static footage, and it's like a fly on the wall, similar to Ghost Watch from 1992. And so I just read about this movie, which is why I know all these facts. I feel very, very smart. I think it's a super, super well done found footage movie. Like, the acting is a little bit rough, but I think the concept is great. I think this combination of like introspection, emotional horror that everyone seems to be obsessed with is seen in this movie, plus really good scares. And it's directed by a woman. And there's so many found footage films out there, and there's like none directed by women. it's this one and then The Black Door, which I talked about a few weeks ago. And In Memoriam is so much easier to find than The Black Door. This one is streaming on Amazon Prime, so you can go watch it right now, which is great. Like, it can get like super, there's access to it. So please go watch it because it's only an hour and 13 minutes long. I think it's really well done, especially for a 2005 found footage movie before there was the big boom in the genre.
Right.
And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's full of some cool twists and turns, and it's really effective. And more women need to be in the genre. I want.
Well, the thing that kind of jumps out at me while you're talking about this is sort of how it feels like that kind of horror is resonant to today, where we have seen a lot of movies that take trauma or that take grief or that take horror or that kind of like horror of dying in this case and combine it with supernatural. Like, that seems to be the way a lot of movies are now. So in some ways, like, I don't think you were seeing that as much in 2005,
no.
you said?
Yeah, because like that's like torture porny era. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the area when it's a lot of gore. It's a little bit more like body horror, torture porn. It's not as much this kind of introspective, elevated horror that people have come to love in the past couple of years, like Hereditary and The Witch and all that stuff. Like, this is what people have been loving the past couple of years, but it was in 2005, directed by a woman. And that gets me a little bit frustrated just because, like, she made Paranormal Activity before Paranormal Activity, but no one talks about it.
Right.
And so I'm talking about it because it deserves more attention.
Hell yeah. And after you have listened to us and watched the movie, I know Mary Beth would never do this, but I'm going to. You should go check out her article that is on Patreon for We Are Horror that I believe is out today. You should go read that because it was a joy to read.
Thanks. Yeah, you should. Mostly because I just want more people to watch these found footage movies that are directed by women and who, it's a very white male genre. And as much as I love it, I would love to see that shift, and I'd love to help that shift. I don't know how, but one day I will figure it out. So
one day when we've made billions of dollars from podcasting and we can be like Adam Devine and just hire someone to edit our stuff, maybe we can start a found footage studio.
All those ad deals we get. Well, my soapbox aside.
Well, I do have a request for you, Mary Beth.
Okay.
I want you to carry a camera around with you at all times so that in case something ever were to happen to you, you could hopefully take a picture of your eye and we could, like, I don't know, figure out who killed you.
Oh,
I don't want to like put you in I don't want to like put you in like a situation where you're dead, but at the same time, I want to be prepared so that we can solve your murder very carefully and very quickly.
Thank you. I appreciate the thought.
I'm just looking out for you, Mary Beth.
I really appreciate you. So guys, we watched Four Flies
on Grey Velvet.
Velvet.
The third in the Dario Argento Animal trilogy. Best one of the trilogy, in my opinion.
I was going to say the same thing.
Like, I know Crystal Plumage gets a lot of love, and it's a great. I think it's a good film. I think it's a great debut film because you can see how assured he is. But I don't know. There's something about this film that I really connected to. What about you?
I agree 100%. I liked, as I was watching it, I was thinking, I like this plot a lot more. I think it is a little bit more complex, and it's a little more engaging in terms of the killer and the plot and kind of the ending as well. It feels a little bit different from what we had seen in the previous two films. So this felt like, it was almost like, did he make all three of them in succession? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yes.
So this one feels like he's really getting his footing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, this feels like he's got it. He's like, okay, I know what I'm doing in Giallo. And then it goes from there. So this is the one where it feels like Argento's become a very self-assured. Not that he wasn't before, but this one feels like he has his footing immediately, much better. And so that's kind of where I saw it. It felt more focused in that regard.
Kind of going off of what you said, first three films of his was this Animal trilogy, and they came out between 1970 and 1971. 3 films in the span of those 2 years. That's pretty awesome.
And on some of the covers, it says it's his lost Giallo masterpiece.
Yeah, I don't think it's as well known or as well seen as a lot of his films.
Which is interesting because I find it one of my actually might be one of my favorites of his that we've watched. I think from the ending specifically, and like the much more melancholy ending than what we've seen in his other movies.
It's sad.
It's so sad. So I think I was much more drawn into kind of like what he was navigating with his ending in this one. It felt a little bit more different than like, oh, bad guy, kill, but a little bit more like, oh, fuck, like this is not as cut and dry as you might think.
I really wish, I did a brief search, and I really wished I could find some writing on this from non-binary or trans people, because the ending kind of digs into sort of body dysmorphia in some ways. And I would say that this is probably the queerest of Argento's films. A friend of the show, Drew, aka Sister Hyde, this is like, I think this is one of her favorites of Argento's, and I did have some tweets from her back from 2020 where she was talking about the queer representation in his Animal trilogy and how queerness is very vital to Argento's filmography, and she was talking about the amazing queer gender presentations behind the twist to two of the films in the Animal trilogy, this one being one of them. She goes on to talk about Mimsy Farmer, who plays, I mean, we're just going to spoil. I'm sorry. This movie is...
Okay. I was trying to figure out, I was like, I don't want to spoil it, but also it's kind of hard. Yeah, it's true.
At this point, I mean, this movie's what, 50
years
old?
Skip ahead.
Yeah. I honestly don't think that it really matters too much in terms of this film in a way. But so Mimsy Farmer is, Drew talks about how Mimsy Farmer, her character is experiencing gender dysphoria in Four Flies, and she finds it bizarrely touching and affecting. I would as well, because it kind of is all about toxicity and people trying to impress their idea of gender onto this woman and the effects that it gives, because it literally drove her crazy.
Yep. And how toxic masculinity caused that, and how her father always wanted a boy. So she was forced to dress as a boy and present herself as a boy, and was also abused for that. And it's like the reveal of that is so upsetting, because you're almost like, you want her to live. You know what I mean? Like most of the time I was like, oh yeah, this person fucked up, and it's in this one, you're like, oh my God, like she is suffering. Like she has dealt with so much shit, and like this violence is her trying to process her trauma and like trying to get revenge on those who forced her into a box that she didn't feel comfortable in. And I was like, this is fucking sad. Like, this is the saddest giallo we've watched.
Yeah.
And the end, like the final scene where, you know, she gets her, you know, the comeuppance that the villain gets. It's tragic. It feels much more tragic than anything we've seen. It's
very affecting. And you're right. I think the ending of this is more about, it's almost like the idea of the Greek tragedy. It is almost like it's a tragic ending where it is framed in such that the music is sad, the music is melancholy. It's not like the ending in the last movie where someone's plunging down a flight of an elevator shaft. You know, it's not It's not played for shock and that kind of stuff. It's actually just this really deeply affecting and tragic death that happens at the end.
Well, exactly. And I feel like a lot of the time, you know, in horror in general, like, yay, we got the killer. Like, it has been solved. Hooray. And here it's almost like, fuck. Like, we found the killer, but you almost like, you don't want anything bad to happen to them, because you almost feel like they're a product of a larger societal issue. And I will applaud Argento, though, because we talked about queerness in most of his movies, and he really does incorporate queerness and like gender identity stuff into his films a lot.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, one of the most, this is the one that is the most obvious, but.
Well, and even like one of the main characters is a gay private detective. And the first line is like, oh, you think this fairy is going to scream bloody murder? And then he's like, and you know, he's very, you know, stereotypical, like he's very fey, he's very over the top and boisterous. And one of his lines that I just love is, oh, you heterosexuals. Like, it's just.
Yes!
I love him.
Oh, it's so good. And like, again, he's not really made fun of. Like, it's obviously like an exaggerated portrayal of a gay man, but at the same time, it's not like he's not called names. Like, he's shown flirting, and he's like similar to the character. Was it in the painter, the guy who was selling the painting in that one movie?
That was the bird with the crystal plumage.
That was
the antique dealer.
It's like similar to that character, and like they're queer, but they're queer characters, and it's not like necessarily a mocking point or
right, or like Dr. Braun in the last movie that's at the gay club, and it's just, this is another part of life.
Hey Terry, can you write an article about queerness in the Animal trilogy of Argento? Because I want to, but I'm not a gay man, and I would rather have someone who's a gay man write it rather than me.
I do kind of want to talk about how this, like, write about how this movie sexualizes the male body in a way that most movies of this time were doing to women. Because this main character, man, is just sexualized, like
beefcake,
and he's constantly shirtless, and people are constantly touching him, and he's like constantly being he's being fondled by everyone. He is basically the kind of sultry at the center of this movie that is typically reserved for the sort of like sexy women in these types of movies, and he is just he's a sex icon in this movie.
He is, and also like there are pretty women in this, but they're not as much as the focus. Like, there's some titties in it, obviously, but like again, there isn't like this one sexualized, like, sexy woman character. Like, he's both of them, which is a fascinating thing to think about, where he is both like the strong male detective and also kind of like the sexualized being that supports that male detective, which puts a whole other spin on like this kind of non-binary reading of the film.
Yeah. There's a sex scene in a bathtub, but it starts with a woman massaging his neck and like almost to the point of like strangling, like she's going to strangle him. Like, it is this very domination, submission type role where she actually gets on top of him in the bathtub. So like she is totally in control, and he is basically her plaything at one point.
Yeah. Well, and especially because he's like, I don't want to take a bath. And then the next scene cuts to him sitting in the bath. And it's like, he's almost, he's like infantilized a little bit, but like he's like enjoying it. Like, she's telling him what to do.
Yeah.
So it is really interesting. Argento, queer ally.
Hats off to you, dude. Working in the 70s, early 70s. Love it. Mary Beth, can we take our final question mark, hopefully, wrong turn down into Appalachia and meet the foundation in the 2021 fantastic film, Wrong Turn? I want to know what your thoughts are.
Wow. I had a blast.
Right?
I had a fucking blast with this movie. Just like as like my very short review is, I did not have high expectations. You've heard us watch the Wrong Turn series. Obviously, I'm not the target demographic for the franchise. That's fine. This was so much more my speed. So much more my vibe. It is by no means perfect. There are some issues.
Oh, it is a messy film.
It's messy. Oh, it's messy, but it's such a fun mess.
Yes.
I think that this Mike P. Nelson's twist and adaptation of Wrong Turn for 2021 is spot on.
I completely agree.
Mm-hmm.
So if you haven't watched it yet, here's the thing: it's $10 to go buy. I think it's like $5 or $6 to go rent digitally right now, and I mean, you're getting like 3 movies for the price of one with this film.
It's almost 2 hours long, and it's three different stories.
At least.
Like we said, not perfect, definitely a mess, but fun nonetheless.
Well, and so the first hour feels sort of like a condensed version of the Wrong Turn movies you are expecting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if you thought this, but I thought it was so perfectly paced from the moment the movie started up until like the first big twist. I thought the tension in this and the way it is filmed, it was just perfect.
Well, and it's beautifully filmed. Like, it's very like lush, beautiful forest. You kind of get that sense of it being humongous, and it's a little scary, but also gorgeous. The performances aren't bad. Like, it's a pretty good chemistry between this group of 6 people. And, you know, it doesn't feel, it's got like a little bit of that like Wrong Turn cheese, but not enough to be like eye rolly. You know what I mean? Like the violence pops off immediately too. Like they go for the hike and it pops off. Like they don't waste time, which I love. Like it just goes and it starts, and it does feel like it feels like a wrong turn movie. And then at 45 minutes, you're like, wait, you have already hit all the beats. Like what's going to happen next? And that's when it gets bananagrams and shifts into like a whole different movie. But yeah, the first hour is beautifully paced. It's definitely, and don't worry, the violence is still just as good and gross.
Oh, it is gory, and it has some face
gory
trauma that I think gives Midsummer a little bit of a run. Like I think Midsummer is probably better, but it definitely is trying to eclipse Midsummer in amount of like pain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I love the score. The score is by a man named Stephen Lukacs, Lukach. But it is the right amount of foreboding. It picks up in the right places. There's some twinges of like violins that really like zing when there's action happening. I think the score to this movie is phenomenal. It really worked for me.
I actually didn't pay a lot of attention to the score, which is terrible of me, but I think I also just never expected a wrong turn movie to have a good score, which is terrible.
Well, I think the reason why is because you might not have been paying attention to it is that it is so perfectly in line with the action that it feels like yes. And I mean, I've watched this twice now. I've spent 4 hours watching this. So on the second time, I was able to pick up a lot more.
That makes sense.
I will say that the second watch, like the problems that I had watching it the first time, sort of a lot of them faded away.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I still don't think it's listen, it is a mess. It is a messy movie. It is trying to do way too much and it doesn't pull off everything. I think the politics of it are confused.
Yes.
But the way this movie ends, we're not going to talk about the ending, but I just want to say the way this movie ends is ridiculous in the best way possible.
And the movie refuses to end. Again, this is not a spoiler, but like the credits start rolling and things are still happening.
Here's the thing. It forces you to watch it until the very end of the credits because this is a movie that literally once it starts until the last second of the movie isn't a movie. So even when the credits are going, it is still playing up until the very last moment.
Yep.
It's wild.
It's wild. Important to note here that it's not you. If you are expecting the Hilliker brothers, you're not getting Hilliker brothers.
No.
There are no inbred hillbilly cannibals, which I, for one, was happy about. So instead, it's the foundation. It's a village of families who in the 1800s decided to move into the woods and kind of make their own little paradise where they'd be cut off from the rest of the world.
Pre-Civil War. Pre-Civil
War.
And that's like a point in it is that this is not it's taking the idea of like the movies have presented the kind of hillbilly backwardsness, but it's taking it like it's making a point that this is pre that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And so it's interesting in that regard because I'm glad it kind of removes that weird like socioeconomic assumptions about people who live in rural communities being hillbillies and ancestral. Like it is nice that I was glad in 2021 we have decided to move away from that assumption. Like that is good and I'm glad to see it. The problem is though that this movie tries really hard to be woke in a lot of places that it's kind of annoying. Like a lot of what they do I respect, like in terms of like changing, like having more people of color in the cast, and like it's not a big deal having a gay couple in the cast. It's not like a big thing. But I think some of the politics they're trying really hard to like hammer in, I think a little too hard. And I think it wants to make it tries a little bit too hard to make its point. And its point being in like different political things about like generational gaps and good versus evil and like autonomy. I don't know. I think there's just a lot going on that this film like didn't really want to focus on one thing.
No, and there is a moment where the story kind of stops moving and goes to follow a different character for a bit. And if I have one complaint, it's that I really wish they had actually excised that entire bit and just focused more on our characters that we've been following from the very first opening moments.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was like...
Because some of the problems that I have in the last half of it are more about the way that we don't really get to know about the Foundation.
Yeah, and I feel like they shoehorn in this relationship between a character, like two characters, the lead girl and her dad, when it doesn't really feel that important.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel that could have cut out like 30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Or they could have spent that 30 minutes actually explaining a little bit more about the situation that they're in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, like we said, it's definitely not perfect, but it's really fun. I had a great time. Like, no matter how many times I was like, the fuck is happening? I was like, this is actually still kind of a blast.
And I will tell you, listeners, that you want someone like Mary Beth that is texting you while they're watching movies, because I was rolling. And there are times where she's like, what the fuck? And I'm like, I don't know what moment we're at now, because there's so many what the fuck moments in this.
And so I will also tell you that Terry told me the entire plot of this movie. I asked him to tell me the entire plot because it was before we like got a screener. I got a screener, and I still was like absolutely fucking shocked. Like, it is a movie that must be seen to be believed, and like the ambitious twist this thing takes. Not all of them are like effective, but you cannot help but like applaud the ambition. Like, this was like Pete Nelson was like, I'm not fucking around here. And I'm like, you know what? If you're gonna reboot Wrong Turn in 2021, I appreciate the energy that you brought to it and what you were doing. And that is what matters, because goddamn, the energy in the last 4 films of that franchise was just so shitty. So it's just nice to see someone who actually is like, oh, I'm not just doing this to be to make something nasty and like shocking. I'm actually like caring a little bit more about the film as much as you can about a Wrong Turn movie. Like, I know what it is, but still.
No, the last 2 films that we've seen in this, it's almost as if people didn't care. It was just trying to make a quick buck out of it. I'm going to be perfectly honest. They did not feel like anyone was trying to bring anything new to the saga.
No.
To see this come out and just come guns blazing and just really telling a fucking wild story that in some way takes something from most of the original 6 films. In a way, there are like ties that you could see to these films, even if they might be subtle, and somehow creates an amalgamation of what Wrong Turn is without having cannibal hillbillies.
And that's so funny, because I initially texted Terry. I was like, this is not a Wrong Turn movie. But the more I thought about it and the more I wrote in my review for it, I was like, fuck, wait, this is a Wrong Turn movie. It's just done better. Sorry, friends of Wrong Turn, but like, I think that this like was a better execution for most. Like, obviously like, the first 2 I know everyone loves, but like, I think this was about a good execution for that concept, and I think it still had the same impact.
So, what would your ranking be? To include this one.
Hold on. So, okay, everybody, I'm gonna go out on a crazy ass limb here and say that 7 is actually my favorite.
Okay.
Then followed by 1, 4, 3, 2, 6, 5. Because the fourth one was in the snow. Mm-hmm. The third one was the prisoners. Mm-hmm. The second one was the shit ghost. I swear to God, I will never think of anything other than the shit ghost. That I don't know why that line fucked with me so much, but here we are, everybody. I don't know.
Don't disagree with your ranking at all.
Oh my God.
In fact, I think mine is the same. I might be convinced to swap 3 and 2 and make it 7, 1, 4, 2, and 3, because the more I think about 3, the more problematic a lot of it is to me. Although I think it my problem with 2 is that 2 doesn't look good. It definitely has that shot on video, direct to video type look to it, whereas the rest of them at least look like they were trying to make a film. And the characters were so insufferable.
I was thinking a lot about 2 and how I did want to bump it up a little bit more, because like, in just literally just me thinking about like the family at the end and like their violence, I liked them as like a collective for the series. Like, I thought that ending with them like in the meat grinder, like I thought all that was really fun and cool, and like there were some fun parts throughout it, but the characters were so fucking insufferable. I couldn't handle our final girl. I wanted to
I know, I
wanted her
either.
to go. I was so over it. But I think I'm with you in switching 3 and 2. I've spent too much time thinking about this. It's kind of embarrassing how much time I've spent thinking about my ranking. It's not as much as I'm making it sound like, but like an hour or two, like that's probably way more than anyone has ever thought about their ranking of the Wrong Turn franchise.
I know. Yeah, so I think that might be the official Scarred for Life ranking for this. 7, 1, 4, 2 or 3. I think 2.
Yeah, 2.
3, 6, and then like on the opposite side of the world, maybe over in Bulgaria where they shot, will be 5. Like 5 is just, I don't ever want to think about 5 again.
Speaking of films that we never will cover on the podcast, Wrong Turn 5. Never come to me and tell me that you want to talk about Wrong Turn 5 because I will laugh in your face.
No, I never want to visit that film again. There was nothing, for me, there was nothing redeemable about that film. Except
literally nothing.
Okay, except I still get a dark chuckle out of them breaking the person's legs to the working on the railroad.
I agree with you.
That is haunting my thoughts and has since I saw it.
I'll be working on the railroad and just
Crunch.
That was hysterical. Again, feel bad for saying it, but God, it was funny.
Yeah.
We did it, Terry.
Wrong Turn. We did.
We made it through Wrong Turn. And now we never have to deal with it again.
Yes.
We did it so you don't have to.
Thank you. Exactly. I might want to revisit the 2021 movie, though.
Yeah, I actually might want to show that to people.
Yeah. But it's our choice.
If we get canceled, Terry, at least we get canceled together, holding hands and bravely facing up against the crowd.
There we go.
If we get canceled over Wrong Turn, I would die.
Oh my God. Oh my God. It'd be like, really? Out of everything?
Out of everything.
This movie?
Wrong Turn is what gets us canceled. But
I mean, people might be a little bit happier if we're bumping 2 up a little bit. I think most people think 2 is the best of the series, which I don't, but
no. But, I respect your opinion, I guess.
Right. Exactly.
But we did.
Whew, we did.
Cool. We're done with Wrong Turn.
Huh.
Yay. We did it. I guess I'm glad for it. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Thanks everyone for supporting this journey. So we're done with Wrong Turn and we're done with Giallo. It's like the end of an era, a mini era on the Scarred for Life podcast.
Yeah.
Little cuts. But Terry, what are we talking about next instead of Giallo? What is our next focus?
So our next focus for Little Cuts, I think we're going to start talking about Hammer horror because it is a mutual blind spot for both of us.
I'm so excited.
I am too.
This is going to be so fun, especially because it's both it's a blind spot for both of us, so we can experience it together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very excited.
But we are going to start with one that I have seen, but it has been 32 years, if not more, since I've seen it. We're going to watch Horror of Dracula, which a lot of people on Twitter today, when I asked what your favorite Hammer horror was, this one came up a lot. And I agree. I'm curious to revisit it after 32 years-ish because I remember it being my favorite of the Dracula films.
Cool. And I have not seen it, and I have wanted to, so yay.
And then we're just going to zoom down through this journey and go visit maybe some of the ones that people have posted on Twitter as being their favorites. We don't know. We'll just sort of go through it and see where we end up.
Yeah. So if you have any suggestions, let us know.
Please do let us know.
And then, Terry, who are we talking to on Monday?
On Monday, we are incredibly excited to chat with Keith Thomas, the director of the Jewish horror film The Vigil.
Woo! Which is out today, so you should watch it.
It is. It is out today. Go watch it. It is scary. It's so scary, I think. It has some really good jump scare moments that are earned. I know jump scare is sometimes a 4-letter word, but they're earned jump scares. And it's so good.
So good.
But we're also talking about a movie we've talked about on Little Cuts. What are we talking about, Mary Beth?
We're talking about Phenomena, Dario Argento's Phenomena, which is so exciting. We covered it on Little Cuts and only talked about it for a little bit. And now we have the opportunity to dive super deep into it. which is so exciting. So you get to hear us talk about razor-wielding chimps and a bug control, or a bug, telepathic bug friend to bugs, Jennifer Connelly. There we go. I got there. I figured it out.
I'm telling you, this is an ending that if you have not seen this movie, I would make sure to watch it before you listen to our episode, because the ending of this film is batshit bananas, and I really would love for you to experience it before we talk about it.
It's like a top 5 ending of a movie of all time.
It
in
really
my book.
is. It's so
I think
good.
it's a top 5 movie. Vulture did not put it on their top 101 endings of all time, but it's on mine.
Yeah.
So get excited, y'all, because it's a really fun conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody, you have heard from us, but we want to hear from you. Have you seen a film that we watched this week and have some thoughts? Do you have suggestions for Hammer Horror that we can't miss out on? You can send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe.
Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room?
It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.